Thank you very much. And please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Tenzin Doma. I'm currently working as a program coordinator of Tibet House New Delhi, and I'll be moderating today's program. And on behalf of Tibet House Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama New Delhi, would like to welcome our chief guest, Professor Vivek Suneja ji, former Pro Vice Chancellor, Delhi University, and current Head and Dean, Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, and Kumar Lobsang Shastri La, representative of Bureau Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama New Delhi, and our speakers and the participants who are gathered here, and also those who are watching live from YouTube for the exhibition and the talk on the contribution of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the world, heritage and culture of Himalayan belt and Tibet. And now I would like to request Tibet House Secretary, Mr. Tenzin Kungyapla, to kindly offer the souvenir and kata to our chief guests. And I would like to request our chief guest to kindly come up on the dais, please. Thank you, Mr. Tenzin Kungyapla. And before I proceed, I would like to give you a brief introduction about Tibet House and its activities, those who are not aware of Tibet House. Tibet House Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama New Delhi was established in 1965 by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage of Tibet. Over 5 decades since its inception, Tibet House has come to the recognized as the significant institution for a dissemination of Tibetan culture and for the Buddhist studies. Tibet House also has a museum of valuable Tibetan arts and artifacts, as well as a library. Every year, a publication unit of Tibet House publishes around 10 to 15 books a year, and a program division which regularly organizes national and international seminars, conferences, film screenings, and exhibitions. Tibet House also offers 4 different courses on Buddhist philosophy, psychology, and Tibetan language course as well. The 4 courses are Nalinda Master's Course, Nalinda Diploma Course, Nalinda Certificate Course, and Tibetan Language Course. And many of you all are part of these courses. And the Nalinda Master's Course, which was first launched in 2016, and it's a 5 years course. And secondly, the Nalinda Diploma Course, which was launched on 2018. Till now, we have successfully completed with 3 batches, and the 4th batch of the Nalinda Diploma course has already been commenced, and the registration will end at this month. And recently, we have also organized 2-month Nalinda Certificate course, which is being offered to those students and the public who wish to acquire the basic foundation of Nalinda Buddhist studies and philosophy. Until now, we have successfully completed with the 1st batch of Nalinda Certificate course as well. And finally, Tibetan language course, which is now both online and offline. Till date, 23 batches have been successfully completed, and the 24th batch has already been begun from December 2022. And thank you. And now I would like to request Mr. Tenzin Kungyap, Secretary of Tibet House, to kindly address today's gathering.
Yesterday and good evening to all. So on behalf of Tibet House, Cultural Center of His Holiness Dalai Lama New Delhi, and Keshi Torit Abdullah, Director of Tibet House, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone. Our chief guest, Kumar Shastri, representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama, Professor Vivek Suneja ji, Head and Dean of Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. Our speaker for today, Geta Sandela and K. Sunachula, all the participants and students who are gathered here today. So, our director, Geshe Tajit Abdullah, was very much looking forward to today's event, but due to his recent travels to Serbia, Geshe is down with cold and sore throat, so he could not make it today. So the topic for today's event, exhibition and contributions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the world, heritage and culture of Himalayan belt in Tibet. It brings great joy to remember His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his contributions to the world. Just yesterday, we had a lecture by Mr. Claude R.P. on the relations between India and Tibet between 1947 to 62, and during the talk, he emphasized the Indo-Tibet relations and shared his experiences of having met His Holiness Dalai Lama in person. So today we have Dawa Sandela with us, who will give the inaugural address, and Gensona Abdullah to share their works and passion to the people and make this exhibition and inaugural session accessible to everyone. I pray that our audience will get maximum benefit out of this program. So without much ado, I would like to request our program coordinator to proceed with the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kungevla. And now I would like to request Ken Dawasamdala and Ken Sanawamdala to kindly come up on the dais and share the dais with the chief guest.
Who am I to say something about His Holiness? But I'll try. This is a holy place. I've been here before on the other side, listening to your teacher Geshe. First, we wish him all the best, very quick recovery. And I'm here among such distinguished people. And of course, thanks to Tenzin and Secretary Mr. Kunkyap. Great to have you to meet Mr. Shastriji for the first time. And also Dawa Samten ji. And Sonam Wangdoji has just shown me I've had a peek. I have first mover advantage. I've just seen the exhibition. Unfair, perhaps. It's a lovely exhibition. And I'm so thankful that Sonam ji put it together. And we look forward to the film that you have. So, which is on the first 50 Tibetan students in exile. And the exhibition is also partially on that. So I'll speak a little bit on, if I may, on His Holiness. What does one say about His Holiness? When you go up to see the exhibition, you'll see a photograph of His Holiness smiling. I was asking him when was that taken. He said probably sometime in the 90s. It could have been 1,000 years ago. His smile remains just the same. When you see him first arrive, he was 24 when he arrived. And you see his smile then, and you see his smile today. It's not changed. Yeah? You agree with that? How many of us can smile like His Holiness? I can't. Maybe when I was very young, my mother tells me, poor thing, she's no longer on this earth. She used to tell me that when your first smile, it was glorious. I'm sure the first smile of every child is glorious to the mother. Yes? And His Holiness has retained that smile. Yeah? I want to ask you, how is it possible His Holiness smiles like a child? Any one of you? Can we have an interactive session? You want me to speak? You know His Holiness more than I do, probably. Why does His Holiness can smile in the way that at least I find it difficult now? Anybody? Go on. Some of you have brilliant smiles as well. Very optimistic. Yeah. Good. What else? Some of you have brilliant smiles as well. He's honest. That's true. He's honest. Yeah. Anything else? optimistic, honest. What else? Tenzin has a lovely smile. Tenzin, what is the secret to good smiles? What is the secret to good smiles? Mona Lisa. You seen the painting Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci? Yeah. Her smile is, of course, little more subdued than His Holiness. His Holiness can also break into raucous laughter. I've never seen Mona Lisa laughing. But you notice there's an angelic smile. I mean, that painting is not just famous just because painted well. Yeah. In fact, if any of you have been to Louvre, where in Paris, where the painting sits, I was lucky enough once to go there. As you walk into that corridor, there are huge landscapes and portraits in that corridor, huge ones. And then, right at the end, there is Mona Lisa, and that size is this is the size of the painting. This is it, right? It's the most famous painting in the world. Why? Look at the smile of Mona Lisa. It's almost a spiritual smile. So it takes something to smile. Uh, our first smile is, as children, is a great smile. So what happens later? So we're born with the Buddha nature. We're born pure and beautiful. Why does so there's another photograph which is key to why His Holiness has retained that smile. And so when you walk up, notice that. It's a photograph of His Holiness in meditation. I've never seen that photograph before. From Jammu Pajani, please have a look. Deep meditation. I asked Sonam where it is. He thinks it's probably at his residence in Dharamshala. It's deep meditation. And taken by, who was the photographer? You? Vijay Kanti. So I'm told His Holiness gets up every morning. That's what Doji told me, 2:30 in the morning or thereabouts. And then for the first 4 hours before he's ready for the day, he meditates, he prays. This Tonglen practice, he takes on the suffering of others and passes on his joy to others. And so by the time there's 6:30 or 7, he's ready for the day. For the first 4 hours of preparation for the day. And if anybody meditates and prays for 4 hours every morning, every day of your life, I guess you would have that smile. Yeah. What does His Holiness teach us? I mean, his contributions are massive, and who am I to speak to them about them? He has his 4 commitments, yes, and he's contributed in so many ways. When you ask him who he is, he says, I'm a simple Buddhist monk. Sometimes he says, I'm just an ordinary human being. But he's done so much. But what I think drives the man, where does he get all his spiritual power from? I think he gets it from the same source as where the Buddha got it from. I was reading the Dhammapada last week. I'm still in the middle of it. And in, I don't know, chapter 8 or 9, it says somewhere that lotuses have fragments, jasmine has fragments, sandalwood has fragments. But the fragments of virtue exceeds any of these. And while the fragments of lotus, jasmine, sandal cannot go against the wind, against the breeze, the fragments of virtue goes to the 4 corners of the earth and the cosmos. So virtue, I think that smile comes from virtue. It comes from leading a beautiful, virtuous life. I think that's his essential message. Everything else flows from that. Gandhi used to say, my life is my message. Gandhi did lots of stuff. In fact, I remember inaugurating, this is a few years ago, a session, a conference where Doji was there. Similarities of His Holiness, life of His Holiness, and Gandhi's life. Any of you happen to be there? This was the Indira Gandhi Center. And it's a great story behind it. And I told it to Doji. It's a bit eerie. The previous day, I had been to Sabarmati. I'd gone to Ahmedabad. So wherever I go to Ahmedabad, I go to Sabarmati. But that was my first trip to Sabarmati. So I went there, and there's anybody been to Sabarmati, Gandhi's ashram? Yeah. So if you go Sabarmati, where Gandhi stayed for a long while, that's where he started his salt march, all his independence movements. Right, the river Sabarmati is there. Very simple. cottage ashram where he used to live. Very bare. There's not even a bed. This kota kind of stone, the thatched roof. There's a charkha on one side and a little wooden where he would write his letters, and that's it. That's the ashram where Gandhi lived. But again, look at Gandhi's smile. Huh? Have you looked at Gandhi's smile? Right? Have you looked at that photograph with a child? He's on a beach and a child is holding his cane and pulling Gandhi. Yeah, and you see the smile on Gandhi's face. So I was looking at all that, and there was a person from the erstwhile Yugoslavia. He was with me. It was his first trip to the ashram as well. We met in a conference in Ahmedabad. And there we felt something which I've only felt when I've been close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama in that ashram. Something came over me. It's a different feeling. Yeah? Different feeling. And this guy, I looked at him, the Serbian fellow, and he said, he was looking also very glazed, very, very strange. So I said, what? He said, can you feel something? I said, yes. He's always ecstasy. Just being in that ashram. So must have been the spirit or virtue of Gandhi there. So then I tell him that, the only time I have this feeling and is when I'm with His Holiness. Because we used to call His Holiness, I used to be Pro-Vice Chancellor University of Delhi, we used to call him every year. So he used to come, deliver lectures. In fact, I remember there was a 2-day lecture he gave to all our students from 68 colleges, University of Delhi. We got a few students from everywhere. And the title of the 2-day event was, What is Life All About? What is life all about? And those 2 days, students asked him, His Holiness, everything. Boyfriend, girlfriend, how do you go for the exam, pressure, all that stuff. It's on YouTube, by the way. You should watch it. And His Holiness his only complaint was that I'm an honorary professor. They're not paying me. Yeah? They should be paying me for all the questions that I'm answering. His landmark humor. Right? One of in fact, the very first time he come, I'm rambling. Is that okay with you? It's okay for me to ramble? I don't have to do a PowerPoint, right? The PM in exile, Samdong Rinpoche, one day I called him. Do you have a different PM now? I called him one day to Delhi University. And like a silly lecturer, I asked him in front of everybody, Sir, do you have a PowerPoint? Because he was lecturing to a big audience. He said, I don't have any power. He's a PM in exile. Nor do I have any point to make. But if you permit me, I like to have a dialogue with the students. And he had the most brilliant dialogue with them. Yes, a brainstorm. So I'm also rambling. Is that okay? No PowerPoint. I also don't have any power. Very little point to make. But, so, we go out of this room where Gandhi's place is, and I tell him that, look, the only time I have this feeling is when I'm with His Holiness. And he holds my hand, especially. So he says, okay. We walk into the next building, the first building we go in, and what do we see? Guess? Oh, you can guess that. So we move from the ashram, and there are these little cottages where Vinoba Bhave used to live and other people. So they made it into little museums. You can guess. So I'm just told him the only time I have this feeling is when I'm with His Holiness. What do you think the first picture that we see? His Holiness. Right? Quoting Gandhi. All right. I fly back night, right? Same night. I open my email box. What is the first email that I see? From Geshe Doji saying, can you come for this conference which is comparing the life of His Holiness with Gandhi? All right. Now you can say these are all coincidences. Okay? Right? Or you can say they're not coincidences. Our father of a nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and His Holiness has often talked about him, shared many of these virtues. His life was his message. His Holiness' life is his message. There is no hypocrisy. It's total authenticity. Yes, that's why I can laugh the way he does. And I think his wisdom, his beauty, his smile comes from those 4 hours early in the morning. Yeah. If you want to know the truth, I want to ask you this question. If you want to know the truth for yourself, which is the way the Buddha did, how did the Buddha find the truth? I'm asking. What did he do? He went around, consulted everybody, didn't work, did penance, almost died, didn't work. You know the story, right? Sujata then gave him a little milk. Then he sat under the Bodhi tree, the people tree, and he said, I will not wake up until I've got the truth of the universe. I'm enlightened. Yes? You know the story? Do you believe the story? What happened that day, you think? I'm asking. If you want to know the truth for yourself, what do you do? Truth you read, you can read scriptures, of course, but how does one discover the truth for oneself? Which the Buddha did, which His Holiness has done. If you look at that picture where he's meditating, I'm asking, if you want to find the truth for yourself so that you have lovely smiles and so that all your life you're free from suffering, not in some future life, now. How many of you are happy now? How many of you are free from suffering now? I was asking. Come on. Some of you have lovely smiles. So the question is, why is there suffering at the moment? Psychological suffering. Look, everybody's stomach is full. Nobody's going to starve in this place. Everybody's got clothes, and most of you seem rather healthy to me, right? Of course, you've got youth on your side. Yeah. So, if you want to know the truth for yourself, how do you do it? I'm asking. I think that's what His Holiness tells us. What do you do? Go on. Of course, whenever His Holiness has been asked what is religion, he says, my religion is kindness. That's all. My religion is kindness. A lot of people don't manage to be kind. Yes? No? If kindness is a source of happiness, and all of us want to, by the way, how many of us want to be happy? The people in this world, I think, don't want to be happy. Have you met such characters? I'm asking, go on. Have you met people who don't seem to want happiness? They want to be miserable and spread misery all around. Have you met characters like this? I hope you're not one of those, but my colleagues are not here from my office, so I might I met some there. Yeah. Are there people who never know happiness in their lives? I'm asking. Is there a difference between joy and pleasure? Okay, let's put it as basic as that. Otherwise, I'm going to pass my time now. What's the difference between joy and pleasure? Is this a pleasure-based society now? Is this a joy-based society? Is Delhi, is the world now basically a pleasure-centered civilization? I'm generalizing, but is the Western cultural consumerist mode, which is increasingly in most countries in the world, is that a joy-based culture or a pleasure-based culture? Pleasure. Short-term pleasure. What's the difference between joy and pleasure? Asking. Joy is long-term. Okay. And why is it long-term? What is the I agree. What is the qualitative difference? When is it long-term? When does... Go on. I'm not saying pleasure is bad. No. Pleasure is long. And joy? Where do you get joy from? Good. Brilliant. Let's go inside then. Let's go inside and look for that joy. Tell me, when are you most joyous? I mean, leave aside theory. If you look at most moments when you be most joyous, what has been the source? I hope you've all had moments of joy in your life. Yes, genuine joy. When? Come on, tell me. When? Mine was when I met His Holiness, I can tell you. But when are you normally joyous? Go on. Is it when you love to do something you love to do? Is that one? If you love playing music, yes, and you're playing music, you love to read. Is that whatever your creative talents are? If you exercise them, that's one source of joy. Would you agree with that? If you love playing football, play football. If you learn to paint, so those are your talents. And you creatively express them. That's a source of joy. Would you agree with that? Come on. What? How? Where else? What is your earliest memory of joy? All of you. I think most of that will be common. Look, this is what His Holiness reminds us. His Holiness doesn't just talk, he's a great philosopher. He talks very direct, simple stuff. No? So I'm trying to get you to, that's what I learned through all the talks that he's given at Delhi University. So I'm trying to put that in a little nutshell. Is it when we share something? I'm asking. Was school picnics a source of joy? Who's now? My earliest source of joy was school picnics. And our school, I was in Xavier's in Delhi. Every year they took us to Surajkund. Have you been to Surajkund? For 12 years I went to Surajkund. I mean, what fetish they had for Surajkund, I do not know. Yeah. And my mother was paranoid. कि उस पानी में मैं डूब जाऊंगा. I mean, अब तो पानी भी नहीं बचा है उसमें. So I said, Mom, इतने पानी में कोई नहीं डूब सकता. But still it was a source of great joy. उसी स्कूल बस से हर रोज जाते थे, कभी गाने नहीं गाते थे. But जब पिकनिक पे जा रहे थे, सारे गाने गा रहे थे. कोई गिटार बजा रहा है, खुश. वही स्कूल बस. उसी से जाते थे, अपना अपना टिफिन खाते थे. पिकनिक में सब टिफिन शेयर कर रहे थे. टिफिन तो उतने ही थे, and you were sharing, and that was a great source of joy. So when the Dalai Lama says compassion is a source of joy, all that he means, friendship, maitri, yes, sharing is a source of joy. Would you agree with this? Yes. So I think there are two ways of relating to people. One is through power, the other is through sharing. There is no third way. In sharing, there's joy, and in power, there's pleasure. Would you agree with that? In your families, in your workplaces, in society, there are only two relationships, two kinds of relationship qualitatively. One is friendship, equal, right? Sharing, joy. Domination, showing off your power, monetary power, or political power. You are a boss and you're subordinate. Yes? That's a source of pleasure. Which is better? You can't have both. If somebody is a friend and you're better looking than your friend, you are richer than your friend, you're more talented than your friend, every way you're better than your friend. Is that how a friendship works? In friends, is there ever any comparison? If you have a genuine friend, is there any comparison? I'm asking. Or there's perfect equality? There's perfect equality? Doesn't matter. The person is better looking or richer. Doesn't matter. That's not a friendship, is it? That's not matri. Buddhism to matri, no? One word, matri. Right? Perfect equals. Yeah? That's joy. And if I say I'm brighter, I'm the CEO, or I'm the professor, and you're a lecturer, you make any egoistic distinctions, that's pleasure. So I think what His Holiness tells us is live in friendship. That I'll close. In Buddhism, they say there are four sublime states. Cha Brahm Vihar. Yeah, I don't know whether Geshe has given you a lecture on this. He gives such wonderful lectures. What are the four sublime states? Four Brahm Vihars? Anybody? First is Maitri. What is the next? Maitri, Karuna, Mudit, and Upeksh. Yes? What is Maitri? Friendship. Perfect equality, sharing, joy. If that is the case, there will be Karuna, compassion. You will take joy in the joy of others, which is Mudit. And you'll do it with everybody, with equanimity, Upeksh. Greet. So now I think that's what His Holiness teaches us. He doesn't teach us, I mean, that's okay, Shunyata, all that wonderful stuff. But his central message is have fun. Yeah, have fun together. It's a wonderful world. It's a short life. Don't be miserable. Be happy. Spread the happiness. If there's suffering, share it so that suffering becomes less for everyone. Smile like children. Be like children. Yeah. Don't be childish, but always be childlike. His Holiness is childlike. He's not childish. He's greatly mature, but he's like a child. Yes, I think that, for me personally, is what I've got from His Holiness. So thank you for patiently listening to me, and I wish you a great program and a wonderful exhibition in store. I'm sure the film will be great too. And thank you for lending me your ears. You know, my name is Suneja. And my wife tells me it should be Boleja. I learned the meaning of my name after I got married. You know, the secret of a married life, happy married life. Okay, this is not a sexist statement. Is Suneja. You know what my first name is? Vivek. Right? It comes from a conjunction of two Sanskrit words, Viv and Ek. Yeah? Viv So English in the Indo-European language, and all English words, root words are from Sanskrit. So viv means various, variety. In Sanskrit, in Hindi will come vivid, vistar. Viv means several. Ek means one. So what does vivek mean? What looks several at the level of appearance is actually one. And if you can see that, that's matri, that's friendship, that's joy sharing. Viv hai, ek hi to bhai. Nahi? So I try to explain my name to the British. I lived for 15 years in Britain, and since they've ruled us, they have this slight element of superiority. So I told them, your names are Peter and Tom and this and that. Our names have meaning. And English comes from Sanskrit. Okay, explain your name. I say, wow, sure. So it's a Viv plus Ek. All right. So I said, look, Viv means various, variety, variegated, vivacious. In India, we'll have vivid, vistar. Before I could explain Ek, they said, we've got your name. I said, I have explained half my name. They said, no. Several aches, headache, heartache, pain in the... I'll leave it at that. So thank you very much. I hope I have not been a big ache. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Vivek Suneja-ji. Now I would like to request Kumar Lobsang Shastila, a representative of Bureau Office of His Holiness Dalai Lama, to kindly address the gathering, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. Professor Vivek Suneja-ji, and they are all friends in the audience. I'm asked to speak about the contribution of His Holiness Dalai Lama to the world, and particularly Himalayan Tibetan religion and culture. I'm very much thankful to Kishis Toja Tamdullah and staff member of Tibet House for inviting me and to give this opportunity. Actually, I'm not the right person to speak about the contribution of His Holiness Dalai Lama to the world and Himalayan and Tibetan cultural heritage. Professor Vivek has already given a synopsis of His Holiness contribution. So, and you all, I hope most of them are studying in Delhi University in different colleges, and you're reading a lot. I think through the literature, you must have read about the His Holiness contribution to the world and Tibet and Himalayan cultural heritage. And also through his wide-ranging teachings and speeches, you must have known about His Holiness contribution. And particularly through his four principal commitment or vision has impacted immensely to the world and particularly to the Tibetan Himalayan cultural heritage. Though the four, his Holiness four commitment and vision seems to be easy to understand, but when we practice, I think it's a little bit difficult, because first one is he has advocated for the basic human values. What is human values? So there are a lot of different interpretations. So values and moral, the ethics and ethos. So when we practice ourselves, it is not an easy task or easy thing to practice yourself. So we have to penetrate, or we have to understand the real basic human values, which are taught in different traditions. And the second one is the religious harmony. We can speak religious harmony and with full speaker, this what we call loudspeaker. You can give it 1 hour or 2 hour lecture on religious harmony, but to practice ourselves, it not for me or you or anybody, it is not an easy task. So we have to analyze, and we have to think ourselves several times how we can create religious harmony in this world, because we are witnessing very awkward situation in this world on the basis of religious tradition. So the third one is the survival and restoration of Tibet and Himalayan religion and culture and ecology. So he has throughout his life met extensively, and he has made too much endeavor for the restoration and the survival of Tibet and Himalayan cultural heritage. So this, I think, I don't need to speak much about it. And I think most of the audience who are studying in this Delhi University, you all must be young age, so you should read more and interact with scholars or learned person, so you can contribute in this regard. And the third one is the revival of ancient Indian wisdom or thought, which is a Nalanda tradition of Indian learning or Indian wisdom. So His Holiness has become a symbol of reviving the Nalanda tradition of Indian wisdom. So these are his four principal commitment or vision. So in order to contribute from ourselves, from our personal level, I think we need to make any amount of effort to continue or to enhance His Holiness Dalai Lama's His Holiness Dalai Lama's commitment and vision. That will be a great contribution from our part. So this much I have to say, and we all wish His Holiness Dalai Lama's long life and success of his commitment and vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to request Mr. Dawa Samtila to kindly share your experience and about this exhibition. And Kesnawandala, the independent filmmaker and the founder of Tibetan Diaspora, will help to translate in English.
Tadri ne pebe kundu nambal hingelia ane ning tawon sandri kundu shuatan chevji in kiabarto andande dili pyogangi ani ulle che ni leisure di tolia mixeg to chimbe tone ani dige leisure ndezi kodina bala mixeg ani king tutango toji ses in shuayis.
First of all, I wanted to extend my greetings to the chief guest, Professor Vivekji, and the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I also wanted to thank the Tibet House for organizing this event.
아니 다티 당보 레전디 아니 초딩 주민수이 쇼고야 등등 가래에 아니 등미교건 이게디 강걸로 따가서 지금도 쉬어이나 아니 또 쇼디 쇼고야디 아니 말한 줄다 거절해 미교들이야 왜 정신 뒤에 냠라 누구요 선사 다티 레겨의 체도 아니 레자지 아니 뭐 저도 주어야지 간다 언더 게르기 민만 안 레수 코네스 슈유 안 디나리아 아니 간다 저도 주어야지 아니 그게 전제되게 막 처음에 인도 주어이.
First of all, I wanted to explain the reason why I started this project. First reason is because of the diminishing or our culture, and the reason why he he started this project is to preserve and promote the Tibetan culture, and also not in a personal capacity, but as an ex and retired officer of the Tibetan administration. And so he's going to be giving a brief he's going to be giving a brief layout of all the reasons why he did the project.
And the day na ta shudu tenze sum yewa nane ani dangbo kongso kyanggo chimbu kati jeten dang ani tuji judang korleya ani che ani nyebate ani pime komso yarek tanante sumbati leya mi yarek chusan korleya ni seki kundung kalup namba chikche ani khasum shuayus.
He has he has laid out 3 points why he did this project in the first place. The first point refers to his gratitude to His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and second one, he wants to stress on the customs and the traditions of the Tibetan, and third, as His Holiness always speaks about being a well person or a wholesome person.
Atelia Tamo Kunsu Jango Chimbu Katin Chitin Shu Guten Sia Delia Chidang Dangwan Tane Aranduta those Jedu Gunung that Chaship Taban the Jevi or Maredile Yena Tangam Gutane until ya Misegi Ani Tuji Novaji Yovati and President some Shubayina Ani Tambo Arand Casereta Mirab Gambanam and Tambo Jagasal Peva Kavlia and Kadata Tanga Nother than Meve Nobachila Hop the Lene Ani Anukuta Chuchi Sterosia Kodamatuba Nadan Jobo Tindeji Kavlia Ani Kanda Ani Zudu Kumduk Jaji Dindeji Kandis Jungdam Magic to Jung Kandis Jungura Sidu that delay Kada on the Jaram Jinkoranko Tuji to do them or the Shen Yungdabi or Mari and that till then that Tandanganto Mirab Daja shorter Shawachil Mava, Bujim with the Goshi or Mariti, only the exit to do shit to the Mao, but to get it done, showed the unit Chavard and Chambushi Yungutas, Nuvatilea, Bana on Chawa Chidang Kabar and Pojo, Chawa Yube, Tilia, and to do Shibujina, and see the Mava Yaki Chambus Dichi, Candice Jumburena, Shudugana. 당한테 신화 신다 가야면 완전 다 겨울은 이제 가지 지에서 뭐 다른 제비 아니 시지단 전화 아니 가서를 그 답에 아니 신뢰 제세야도 누게 말지 레디 이내야 가공 후든 쉬니 안 더너야 아니 산에 보이지 이내 라메 아니 내가 지금 말했어요. 템버리면도 돈 미나리 시에도 세야 지금 된대다. 두개 쳐지 퓨터벌 때네 안 다자 시드 맵에 아니 근데 된대 중국에서 망한 거 미율래매 그래서 이제 중소 다디 저 공사 장군 친구들 한게 도지 거지 란 때문에도 지나다 가도 되네. 딜딜이지 뭐 장만 아니 신다 가야 뭐 중네 그 어른 뭐지 가야 숨고 시트 보이나 Taylor to Mendes do the year with the Banda Mongo Jimbayu, anything was the Shun, the Chandra wish to chase soon at you. And somebody on the Mando, turning in a Captelia, that make our look have it, but not the Shingi or Mardi Yene, and on the Kumbat Canal, and on the Suras on us in the Tendi Ode, Tia Annie, that the Naguna, that on the Poyujan, Kunjo Nampachi Remoto. 지난 미까지 셨는 거예요. 말 그래서는 코란도네 뉴 코란도 좀 살인다 말 뒤에서는 내가 교부 된대지 그걸로야 아니 간다지 손에 시도 말 더붙지 맞아 여보이나 안 더분 뉴스 되는 보는 따지 딘데 근데 다 딘데 내가 망보여 일단 근데 대달 때네 아니 권수장군 신부 수혈래야 아니 말한다 치즈네다 최저 더번 그 제기요 말이지 이내 단단고 타네 아니 가서 tuk주 주준 너가 그것도 지어버디 안 되는 방다 쇼여스
Sorry, this is my first time participating, so kindly bear with me. When the Tibetans, when the first generation of Tibetans came to exile in 1959, they went through a lot of struggles, and even though the condition at that time was desperate, deplorable, but the resilience shown by the generation, that is something that really sort of pushed him and really admired. And even though we, whenever we see His Holiness, we see him in a physical form, but then we never see him in a sort of a godly thing. But then there are so many signs that his blessings and his contributions that we can, see and acknowledge. The first one is, in the South India, we have the large Tibetan settlements in India, the farming and everything. And today, when you look back, there is so much development happening in these settlements, and this is because only of His Holiness blessings. And that is why we should always listen to His Holiness. For Gyala says that he has evidence and proof that there is something special in his words. And as you know, we have a large section of Tibetans who deals in the sweater selling business. It's a seasonal business. And even though the situation, and even though these people, they work under harsh and difficult circumstances, but the resilience and the determination they show is also it's because of His Holiness blessings. So therefore we should always heed to his words. The first example of is even though any person illiterate or without any education background, when you in one of an example, he mentions that he invited one of his friends to the Tibetan community, and he said that when he asked him, how did you felt, he said he reached a very happy place, and he said that the Tibetans are very well-mannered and good-mannered. And I think it's important to give more precedence to the well-mannered than education. And we should also acknowledge that we have a very distinguished leader as His Holiness. And for example, if Tibetans are usually well-mannered, and when you find some money on the road or something, Tibetans tend to return that money to the person who lost it. So these are some of the qualities that he mentioned. And if you are not well-mannered or, so to speak, a good person, you might end up being corrupted or in a jail or something.
슈디 권한저 가르친 거에서는 더 권다 고도 이내에 그 데려다 시에도 왔어. 아니 카드링로 배 아니 먼저 별이야 이게 되게 나와 가서는 지밀 마신 거 아니 먼저 배배 검세 냠라던 게 쓰거래. 냠라던 게 샤는 먼저 야게 땅이요. 근데 먼저 딘도션이 신경이 kontrol 때야 요 말이. 먼저리야 때야요 시에데 디렉션 시에도 제대로 아는 안 하던데 말 드리려 근데 요래 신 중예지 중 근데 될 때는 음식 드리지 용세의 인자 나들이야 지지하면 디르미도 산 아니 다 안도 다 닝도지 쇼빈 아니 가지 전쟁 아직 아니 저득시 휴유
In the past in Delhi, when we did some protests and demonstrations, Tibetans from Nepal, they ask, how's the atmosphere, and he said, that the
개미 그 별이야 우리 고도 쉬어와 아니 군대스나 아니 개미 가대 시계를 믿기지 아니 한테 그나요 디지털 기부여거든 그냥 제대 하든지 다도 맞춘 거 아니 냠라든 쓰고 냠라든 주시는 거 약겠다.
So when Tibetans, when Tibetans who came from Tibet in Nepal, when they ask, when they ask the Tibetans from Nepal, they said, you're living in a place where there's a spiritist. As you all know, His Holiness is always referred to Chinese by the spiritist. So a spiritist and someone who destroys the culture, But then the person said that, these are all fake and these are all lies and propaganda, and instead of finding any truth in these propagandas, there's more things are being done to promote and preserve the culture.
먼저 디게딜리아 아니 추정의 팬벨레가 가르쳐요. 쓰나 디체유 세니 고바 가자데 두교 디게 차는 다들이 디아시와 두즈메데 두교 차단직 주시요 상보들라. 니바딜리아 아니 베베 검수 가서 냠라 아니슬라소단 다지 체이스월 제단 근데 제가 가르쳐봐 쓰나 디도리아 어딘디 디나리아 아니 근데 베베 사단 도당 굽나 차단 직다 보면 검수 계속 고주다지 다 디나리아 저주시요 다디 인디나리아 아니 이돌리아 아니 버리나리아 인디 단다 먼저 가서래 인부 니게베게 나리아래 제저던디 다 단다 랍다카다 아니 아란지 누마 절레다 타자라나래 가서래 시게나래 근데 지비치비 어디 림베게 아니 대고 가서래 별이나래 잡대버려 오시고요 숨바딜이야 아니 걔네들 다는 멜롱갑지 나리아 아니 내가 가르쳐봐 둔대 가르치면 쓰면은 아니 디나리아 아니 전전날 당보 뒤도 간데 속으래 차례 가르나버래 당은 둔대 가르친 거래 되게 개발도야 아니 히말라야 균 라다디 다 마음 봐나야 간데 베베 가서 낭지 뛰네 니버지 차야 그래 무슨 디나이가 건데가 되게 정말로 아니 디나리아 아니 조치시셔 예스 시네 시버들이야 아니 단다 버바다 마임베 나버찌를 뱀벨라가 가르쳐야으나 아니 자가단 배인이나니 여베 아니 가서래 남베 내긴 카 디에디 아니 그 자게 벽에 인계적 돌 아니 버바다 마임베다 원남버찌를 뱀벨치도 아니 초디 년딩을 남네 초리 쉬네 아니 그 저도 간살을 미시 쉬어요 시바 마바 텔레야 아니 베베 여럽 저선디 아니 야가서 답에 그랬단 거라서나 안티 아니 영아 니도 당 아니 갸바도야 아니 빠리 남전에 아니 두세요 센디게 간걸로 초리 쉬어 타네 아니 근데 데미션 다시어 수림베다 도도 쉬어나 아니 더 말한지 전제자 마이베 아니 क्या 이나야 아주 딱 거절에 제주 롱벌이 이나야 아니 나단 된대지 털이나 아주 배배 검수들이 다지 지난 된대지 셔요 아니 걔한테 그 이내 배배 검수 냠 약라서 야기했던 거 선거를 말도 지금 디자인했던 거 선거가 말이 근데 여기나 다 그런도 지금 때로나 세는 책수 콩도 남겨타는 많이 봐 선거 상보 펜션 상보타는 콘로양 비고지 쉬나 안 달리지 폐명에 선배당한테 미국 되는지스
The photo exhibition is organized to address 5 points, as a sort of a counter to Chinese accusations and Chinese propaganda. The first one is, if they ask you, what have you done to promote religious harmony? So through the exhibition you can see what we have done in the past. The second is, the promotion of customs and traditions. If the Chinese ask you, what have you done to promote customs and traditions, Tibetans? And third is, what have you done for the last 50 years in exile? So these are the points to counter the Chinese propaganda. And the fourth one is, what have you done to the Buddhists at large, all around the world, especially Nepal and Sri Lanka. And the fifth one is, what have you done to, promote, or rather encourage to be a good-natured or good human beings. So these are the five points to counter the Chinese the propaganda through these exhibitions. You can find these the reasons in the print, the photo exhibitions. And it's also the photo exhibition is also an opportunity to showcase our aspirations, that what we have done in the last 50 years.
And that 디가슬리아 참조 쉬니 자 레전 디고 가서 검수 라서 다베기 레전 차단디 한 다른 살아 추리 내고네 아니 계시 난 자신 연구하래 들이나 지난 통도 여바이나 근데 근데 지고 보이네 아니 얘야 가서를 저완나나 안 뒤도네 캔 두고래 한 다리인다 고 된대시나 몰라 아니 인도 주제는 시험이 되시래.
So I'll keep the lecture short here, and if you want to know more about his works, you can contact the Culture and the Religion Department, CTA, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Kedasamdula. And now I would like to request Kesnaundula to kindly share the brief introduction about the exhibition and the documentary film on the first 50 Tibetan students in exile.
Toshidale and hello everyone. My name is Sonam Mungdu. This is the first time I'm speaking in public, so trust me, I'm very nervous. My heart's racing, I'm already so nervous. But anyways, the director of Tibet House, Geshe Dorje Damdula, asked me to speak on my experience as someone in the visual media field and my journey making this small film titled The First 50 Tibetan Students in Exile. So I wanted to thank Geshe-la and Tibet House for the opportunity. I also run this small YouTube channel called Tibetan Diaspora, and many times I have requested Geshe-la to speak on certain topics, and he has been so supportive and generous. I don't know if you have watched any of the contents with Geshe-la. But one of the content that really sort of people appreciated was Geshe-la's recommendation of books by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that was really appreciated by many of the viewers. Okay, sure. So today when Geshe-la asked me to organize this exhibition and also give a small talk, I couldn't say no because I've always been running away from stage, but this time there was no escape. Anyway, coming back to the film, I chose this film since it goes with the theme of the exhibition. We know all the history of how His Holiness came to exile and how he got to Missouri and his meeting with the Prime Minister Nehru on April 24th, 1959. However, I was always intrigued by the history of our early exile years. And I've heard many times His Holiness speak about the challenges and the difficulties faced during those years, and how he established the first residential school for Tibetan refugee children. So that piqued my interest, and I decided to document on this subject. So then began my journey of discovering our exiled roots. I managed to gather the list of the names of the first 50 students and started digging their whereabouts. Unfortunately, many of them were no more, and those who were remaining were very few. But fortunately, I got hold of 3 persons who were one of those 50 students. And fortunately, one of them was retired staff working at Missouri, and he lives in the Tibetan Homes Foundation, right next to the CST Missouri School. So I called him, and I went to the Missouri in December 2021 and interviewed him. So after reading the history of our early years in exile and listening to these interviews, I'm just humbled how the first generation of Tibetans in exile went through, and especially His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who was very young at the time, 24 years of age, and how he shouldered the mammoth responsibility of the welfare of his countrymen in a foreign country, and that too with the peak of the summer heat. It was April and May, the heat was rising. So it was very overwhelming for me as a small filmmaker, to see the resilience of the first generation of Tibetans in exile, and was humbled by their sheer determination and resolve to make it through in such a difficult and challenging times. I also wanted to share one anecdote that was recounted in a memoir by Kundaling Wesegenze, who was the then educational minister of the Tibetan government in exile. He was with His Holiness the Dalai Lama when the inauguration ceremony took place on the March 3rd, 1960. So when the ceremony was over, I'm sure we have seen the photograph of His Holiness on that ceremony. He was sitting on a chair, and there were government officials behind him, with him, and also a lady, and also some representative of some international voluntary agencies. And there was one lady called Miss Wealthy Fisher. So there was a very small gate, entry gate, and all the guests were, were making their entry, and Mrs. Fisher almost stumbled, because of the small rush. And after the ceremony was over, they considered this small incident as an auspicious omen, because once in Tibet, in one of the monastery, a new assembly hall was being inaugurated. And because of the rush, one monk actually died. So they considered this to be an auspicious symbol. So Mrs. Fisher's stumble turned out to be an auspicious beginning for us Tibetans. So there was some interesting fun facts for me personally regarding the school. So I think we owe you, Miss Fisher. So when I went to the very spot when the ceremony took place on the March 3rd, 1960, I was transported back to that era, I was very sad to see the old house go, the old house was called the Allen House, where the ceremony took place. Now it's replaced by a new building. But I was very happy to see a small portion of staircase, still remaining in a good shape. So that is the only tangible piece of thing of that era, and I was so happy to see that. Anyway, after finishing the film, I sent the link, the video of the link to the Geshe-la, And he told me that I should now come in front of the camera, behind the camera, and not always walk behind the camera. And heeding to his suggestions, I recently made a vlog on the history of my alma mater, that is Tibetan Children's Village. So that was my first experience of getting in front of the camera. And like Geshe-la said, it's on my YouTube channel, Sulam Wongdi 2.0, second version of myself. The history of my school, TCV school, is also very interesting. When His Holiness the Dalai Lama shifted to Dharamsala after staying a year in Mussoorie, he left Mussoorie on 29th April 1960. And on 1st May, the leader of the Tibetan road construction camp at Jammu, he met with His Holiness and he briefed him about the dire situation of Tibetans working as the road construction laborers. I'm sure many of you know that the early Tibetans who came into exile, they worked as the road construction laborers. The roads you see along the Kullu, Manali, Sikkim, Ladakh, many of these roads were built by the Tibetan road who came into exile. So when he briefed His Holiness about the dire situation of the Tibetans, especially the children, so His Holiness assigned one official the task of bringing these children to Dharamsala. So the official, he brought 51 children to Dharamsala, and on May 17th, the Tibetan refugee nursery children was established. And he assigned his elder sister, Yapshi Srindomala, as the head of the nursery. The government of India then rented out a Konyam house, a place called Konyam House, next to His Holiness' place, a Swark Ashram, to accommodate the 51 children from Jammu. A Konyam House is where the Tiba is currently situated, because it's very close to Swark Ashram, Poranyingba. And since more and more children started reaching the nursery, from different parts of the country, so the government of India again rented out a British bungalow called Egerton Hall. And in 1962, to accommodate the rising number of children, Kishore Niwas was purchased with the funds from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Swiss aid to Tibetans. And in 1966, Egerton Hall, along with 43 acres of land, was purchased from funds from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Norwegian Refugee Council to establish a permanent nursery. The 4 first homes were built with donations from supporters in the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. The first home was opened in 1967, built with donations from Mrs. Eric Merlman and her friends from Hawaii. So many of these homes have been built with the support of the following organizations: the Friends of Tibet Hawaii, Tibetan Children's Relief Society New Zealand, Tibetan Children's Aid Society Australia, Dutch Aid to Tibetans, the Netherlands, US Committee for Refugees USA, Swedish Tibet Committee, Sweden, Save the Children's Fund, England, and German Aid to Tibetans, West Germany. Tibetan Refugee Aid Society of Canada, Dutch Aid to Tibetans, and the Norwegian Refugee Council, and SOS Kinderdorf International, Austria. We also have received support from other countries such as Korea, Japan, Denmark, France, and many more. In 1971, the Tibetan Refugee Children's Nursery was renamed as Tibetan Children's Village. So there's a small history of how the TCV school started in Dharamsala. Lastly, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and also the government of India and its people for their continued support in the rehabilitation and the resettlement of Tibetans in exile. And also, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all the international voluntary agencies and individual donors, without whose support, many of these institutions could not have been realized. And lastly, I think it's very important that we know our past and honor and appreciate those who have been instrumental in our journeys. I am reminded of this quote by Dr. Shashi Tharoor. He said it's very important to know your past, because only then you would appreciate where you're coming from and where you're going to. So as I said, it's very important to know our past, our roots, our history. And as they say, trees have roots, men have history. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kesna Ondila. Before we screen the documentary film, I would like to request Kongal of Shasila to kindly offer the souvenir and khada to our speakers. Mr. Dawa Samtila.